What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Oskar Blues Brewery, and they are headquartered in Longmont, Colorado, and this is their Dale's Pale Ale. So they're calling this one an American Pale Ale that comes in at 6.5% alcohol by volume, 65 IBUs at the time of review. This can is just under 5 weeks old. So Dale's Pale Ale, somewhat of a classic. I'm going to say it's a classic. It's been around for about 20 years. I think it was first introduced in 2002. And when I got into craft beer in late 2009, early 2010, this was one of the first pale ales, along with Sierra Nevada's pale ale, that I tried. And when I was first getting into craft beer, I was not a huge fan of hop-forward beers at all. So I did not like this one, but I grew to really enjoy it over the years. But it's been a while since I've had this one. I'm going to say maybe like mid-2010s is probably the last time I had this one. The problem with this beer is that it's hard to find fresh here in the West New York area. So when I saw this one about a week ago and it was just under a month old, I was like, I got to grab it. I got to review it. And here we are. So this beer, I always thought drank more like an IPA, 6.5%, 65 IBUs. That's more of like IPA, old school American IPA numbers, and it always had a little bit more of a hop bite to it. So yeah, I'm revisiting it for the first time in at least 5 years, probably closer to 6 or 7, and I'm here for it. So let's crack this one open, get in the glass, see what we got going on. I believe for hops they're using Comet, Cascade, and Centennial, I believe, are the hops. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong out there, but I'm pretty confident. Anyway, let's give it a pour. So this is a left hand's like, I use it for their milk stout lineup to pour because the Cascade, but I believe they're also headquartered in Longmont, Colorado. And I was like, you know what we'll do here is we will put it into the Longmont family. Doesn't matter. I just didn't have a Oskar Blues glass. Anyway, so again, in the glass, this looks like an old school American IPA. Has it really dark, like caramel orange color. You know, there is some clarity, but there's a little bit of haze too. Has about a finger of this off-white, creamy looking head, a little bit of soap sudsy look to it, but mostly creamy. Some decent carbonation bubbles in there. It looks like an old school American IPA, but it's a pale ale. At least they call it pale. It's good nose. Yeah, so this is like a West Coast IPA. The smell of it, there's a caramel malt, there's a breadiness, there's a lot of citrus characters, orange, grapefruit, and it's more of like a zesty, rindy type of citrus tone. After that, there's a nice floral sensation. That's a little bit different. I don't get that a lot in IPAs, but a nice floral aspect to the nose. There's a resinous pine. There's an earthiness. There is, like a lot of people said, and I said earlier, a hop bite. You can tell this is hoppy and hop forward. Yeah, what's crazy about this is this does smell fresh, and it's relatively fresh, just under 5 weeks old. I typically can't find this any fresher than a couple months old, usually like 3, 4, 5 months old. And I grabbed this in a mix of sixer at my local Wegmans grocery store. That's how fresh it was. I was just kind of like blown away. I was like, wow, we barely ever, was there something in my glass? Yeah, whatever, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it smells good. It smells balanced, but it leans a little bit more to the hop side of things. I think the taste, though, is going to wake up my palate, for sure. Anyway, let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Yeah. What I really like about this, and it's not like I sit here and I'm like, oh, I can't remember everything of a beer that I drank, 5+ years ago. But my memory of this is, again, it was more hop forward. It drank more like an IPA. And I'm telling you right now, that's kind of what I'm getting in the taste. It's American Pale Ale only name. It really reminds me, not in flavors, so don't get me wrong here, but it reminds me of like the Zombie Dust, which is also known as a Pale Ale from Three Floyds. But every time I've had that, it drinks more like an IPA. And I think that's kind of where this leans. It's more of a American IPA for me. Body's like lower side of medium, right around medium, really nice at 6.5. The mouthfeel is better than most in this style. It's a crispy boy. It's a crispy boy. No, it has a lot of like crisp, spritzy carbonation on the front of the tongue, but as you sip it and swallow it, it's so smooth going down the palate, like incredibly smooth. The taste, it carries over from the nose almost to a T. You're hit with sweet, bready caramel malt sensations at the front of the palate, slides underneath the palate, and then the hops roll in. There's zesty orange and white grapefruit There's a very slight touch of like a stone fruit, like a peach or an apricot. Very slight touch for me. Middle of the palate is where it transitions from all that zesty, fruity goodness right into a floral, resinous pine type of finish. That carries on the back of the palate. This finish is moderately to like full-on bitter. I'd say more to the moderate side of things, like right in between there. It has a semi-dry finish, but this bitters out quite a bit on the back of the palate. 6.5%. If I was doing this blind, so this is another thing. If I was doing this blind right now, everything I'm drinking, there's no way I would say this is a pale ale. I would definitely say this is drinking like an IPA to me. So from that aspect, if you're looking for like a lower ABV kind of refreshing pale ale, I don't think this is it. If you want something that has a lot of flavor, a big pop of bitterness on the finish, and has a lot of nice flavors in general, this is for you. And I'm really enjoying this. It's just, I've mentioned this, I don't know when I'm going to post these other reviews, but I had a couple beers where they're too bitter, but in the aspect of there's just not enough sweetness to combat that bitterness. With this beer, is it bitter? Yeah, I said it was over moderately bitter. Is it dry? Sure, it's semi-dry, but there's such a nice blast of sweet malt character at the forefront that you get that balance. First half is sweet malty goodness. Back half is that bittering hop component. I'm not even talking about the flavor, I'm just talking about the sweetness of the bittering aspect. So I think this is actually quite balanced, albeit leaning a little bit to the bitter side of things, but I can handle that. And I'm not somebody who loves super bitter beers or super dry beers, and this works for me. Stylistically, as far like as an American pale ale goes, I don't think this is a great representation of the style, at least of what should be like Sierra Nevada pale ale is what I think about pale ale. When I think about the style itself, especially American pale ale, and this just has more of a vibrant, kind of punch you in the face type of flavor profile that you really don't. I say this is more of an American IPA. It doesn't really matter, no, but I think that this is a really tasty beer and I enjoy it. So Dale's Pale Ale from Oskar Blues. I have no issues giving this beer right here a high 4 out of 5. I'm going to go 4.1 out of 5. It's really damn good, and I could see a lot of like newer beer drinkers over the past. If you got into craft beer in the last 5 years, and you're going to go pick up an American pale ale, this is probably not what you're looking for. I feel like some people will enjoy it if you just got into craft beer, but most will be people that have been drinking this one for a good, 5 to 10 years, maybe even longer. But if you just picked this one up for the first time in the last 5 years, post in the comment section and let me know what you thought about it. Did you hate it? Did you love it? I'd be curious to know, because I don't think this is a beer nowadays people pick up and be like, oh, yeah, that's totally what I want. If you're into like hazies and stuff, I don't think that would be what you're going for. So I appreciate it though, and I think it's damn good. 4.1 out of 5. Price and availability. I picked this up in a mixed sixer. It was $10.99 for 6 beers, so under $2 a can for this for me personally. But I think it's even cheaper outside of mixed six packs in my area. I think it's like $9 to $10 for a 6-pack of this, so damn good price point, especially for something that has quality through and through like this beer. And availability, I have no idea. I just know if you see Oskar Blues, you should see this beer. This is like their flagship beer, and it has been for 20 years. And it's just a really well-made, tasty, enjoyable hop-forward beer. Whether you want to talk about it's a pale ale compared to an IPA, it doesn't really matter. What matters is in the glass, and what's in the glass is a really tasty beer. So I'm really happy I was able to grab this one relatively fresh and give it a proper review. And now I can say I've had it recently and not 5, 7, 12 years ago, I have drank this one again, and I'm happy I did. So again, in the comment section, please post if you've had this one before and what's your general thoughts on this beer. I would really like to hear some feedback. Appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Cheers.